Hey, good evening. So tonight's presentation, I guess it's probably about a year and a half ago. I think I got a loud voice. I started hearing something. I call a lot of nests, and I would hear people talk about how that day they activated a park on the air, or they worked parks on the air, and discovered that I really don't know anything about that program. And I've even heard some of you guys in here talk about doing parks on the air. So I've asked Bobby, 85BS, to do a presentation. He's done quite a bit with it, and so Bobby.
Thanks, John. How many people in here have done POTA activations before? Okay, several. How many have hunted for POTA park activators? A lot of hunters. Okay, super. All right, my name is Bobby, KD5BS. My mom called me Robert when she was mad at me. And I'm from Olive Branch. Been a Delta Club member for 2 or 3 years now. But one of my hobbies inside the ham radio world is activating parks on the air. I got started in this from other ham radio friends who were very, very active in doing this, and so I sort of found my way through it. Started as a hunter, and we'll talk about hunters and activators in a minute. But before we get to any of that, I want to make sure that I thank the St. Petersburg Amateur Radio Club in St. Petersburg, Florida, and Stones River Amateur Radio Club in Smyrna, Tennessee, for these slides. For the most part, with the exception of a few that are customized for this area, these slides either came from the POTA site, a lot of the pictures came from these other clubs, so didn't have to do a whole lot of work for this presentation, to be honest with you. POTA is a 501 C3 organization, which is nonprofit, basically. And it focuses on portable operations from, and this is important, from state, provincial Canada, in this case, and nationally managed public lands. You won't necessarily see city parks. Not all state facilities are in POTA organization's reference list, but you will see national parks, you will see national forests, you will see a lot of state parks, and you will see a boatload of wildlife management areas that are all part of the POTA reference list. Reference in POTA terms means a park, or a facility, or a location that has been designated as a POTA type reference point for activations. There's a small group of dedicated USA volunteers that manage POTA, and they're all states, and they manage social media, so there's a variety of different places out there that you can find information on POTA. We'll talk about some of that in a little bit. This says, and this is an old slide, probably 2,700 registered users from all over the world. That number is today about almost 10,000, maybe a little over 10,000. So it has really grown. This is probably 4 or 5 year old slide in that sense. So it's really, really grown in popularity. This presentation is sort of about what POTA is and how to get started. It's not about some of the intricacies and details and that sort of thing, but helping you get started in POTA is what I wanted to talk about tonight. Write this down if you're interested in POTA. Parksontheair.com is their main website, and it has a lot of information about what POTA is, what the POTA rules are, how to get started, and you can also go to the help getting started link, and you can, if you can see right here, you can fill out the information, use a logon that you already have, so they don't store any passwords. It's pretty unique in that case. I think there's a lot of movement in websites going to these kinds of logins, but they don't store your password, so don't worry too much about that. If you got Google, use your Google login. If you got a Facebook login, use that, right? So you've got to set up an account, is what I'm trying to get to. For you to get credit as an activator or to get credit as a hunter, you have to have an account for them to accumulate your statistics. Okay, let's talk about the two modes. An activator, you must be inside a POTA registered park. So in a little bit, we're going to show you the map. We're going to show you where those parks are located, a list of those parks, that sort of thing. And you need to find that park, right? Pretty easy to do in most cases. Knowing where the park is and what the park's boundaries are a little bit more difficult sometimes. So just know that if you're going to activate and get credit for activation of a park, you need to be inside the boundaries of that park. A hunter can, well, let me finish that again. You also have to make 10 logged contacts. So not a big effort, right? And if you do everything right, it can take you 10 minutes to get 10 logged contacts. I don't know if you can do it much quicker than that. Maybe you can. But 10 logged contacts in 10 or 15 minutes is pretty standard. A lot of guys will go out to a park and activate. They'll plan a trip, and they'll do 10 parks in a day or more. Right? So they'll move in, they'll set up, they'll spot themselves, which again we'll talk about in a little bit, and they'll start getting contacts. They'll start CQing, they'll get contacts back, and the longer they're there, the more contacts, the more likelihood they'll get a pilot as a result of that spot. But they got to make 10. They'll shut down and they'll move to the next park. And they'll do this all day long, or as long as they want, and cover as many parks as they can in a day. Then at the end, the activator must submit the log. Okay? You've got to submit it through POTA, the POTA app, and one of the new things we'll talk a little bit about is the fact that you can go into the POTA app when you get home, and you can take your logger, export to an ADIF file, which is pretty common, and import that file directly into the POTA app. So you get credit for it literally within minutes, right? In doing that, you also give your hunter credit. So the hunter, you can be a hunter from anywhere. You can be a hunter from within this room if you have the radio and the equipment to do it. You can do it from your shack. You can do it from your car. You can be a hunter anywhere. And the good news about a hunter is you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is find the activator, make a CQ contact with that activator. But you don't have to submit a log. It's the responsibility of the activator to send that log in. Once he does and he submits that log, you as the hunter, if you've got an account, get credit for that as well. Right? So it's pretty simple for a hunter. I personally started as a hunter. I must have done 200 or 300 QSOs as a hunter before I ever went to the field myself to try to activate. I was a little scared of it. I had never done any HF before. And so this POTA got me started in the HF. Right? So how does it work for these activators? Well, you've got to choose park, right? A reference here is a park. You've got to choose that park and put it on the air so that there's 10,000 locations, I guess just under 10,000 locations in the USA and Canada. That's a lot of different parks. You got to find, you can find a list of state, provinces, and maps at ontheair.com or the POTA.app, which we'll talk about. You've got to spot yourself if you can. So we'll talk about spots a bit more, but spotting is a way for you to broadcast the fact that you are going to be in a park, you're going to be on a certain frequency, and generally it doesn't matter whether you put times. There's a process for what I call advanced spotting, or what they call reservation. You can make a reservation for a spot to let people know that in advance I'm going to be in Park 7322. I'm going to be there on July 15th and between 9 and 11. You can do those kinds of things, right? Most people don't do that, I think. Most people will wait and spot themselves once they get in the park, and that spot becomes active within a second or two. And it's now broadcast or published on their POTA.app website, and others can see it. All you've got to do is start making CQs, calls, and they will, and we'll talk about that exchange in a bit, and you will start getting feedback. You'll start getting people calling you and responding to your CQs. There are times, and I've listened to several, where you've got guys that are so busy, such a pile-up, that you just wear yourself out answering the pile-up. And a lot of guys will team up, and two activators will go out together as a team, and one will work for 15 or 20 minutes and turn it over to the other. If both of them are making the same contact, so let's say, John, you and I went to a park, and we were out CQing, and we get somebody call us to respond to our CQ, then I can take him and log him. I can turn him over to you. You can take him. So we both get activator credit for that in the same place. Okay? Spotting is key. And I can't emphasize that enough. There are times when you, as an activator, are not going to be able to spot yourself. Why? No cell service. Some of these parks, particularly some of these wildlife management areas, some of these places up in the mountains, just don't have good cell service. You can't spot yourself. So, unlike a lot of concepts, it's okay for you to get a buddy to spot you in advance. So if you sort of know you're going up the mountain, there's no cell service, call your buddy, say, give me 15 minutes and spot me on this frequency in this location, right? It's okay in POTA to get somebody else to spot you. So here's just a look of a POTA map. This map's available inside the Parks on the Air and in the POTA.app. And you can see the different locations here. In the Memphis area, for example, in the Memphis area right here, there's several that you can get to pretty easily. One down here at Arkansas Lake. There's several over in this area. There's a ton over here and down in this area in western or eastern Arkansas. A bunch around Tupelo. So these are easy drives, within an hour to 2 hour drives in most cases, and you can activate these parks. Now, when you're in the app and you take your mouse and you click on one of these yellow dots, a little piece of information is going to pop up. It's going to tell you the park reference number. That's important. And it's going to tell you the park name. So that might be, these right here, might be Dax's Trace Parks right through here. I know that's Arkansas Lake right there. Some of the others around. But this map is available nationwide, all 50 states and Canada. So you can see it. I just happened to zoom in a little bit so you can get a bunch of these for you. So when you plan a trip, if you're planning 2 or 3 parks, I usually make a list of those parks that I'm going to and have those on a tablet available to me from my radio so that I know what park I'm in. I can set my log up with that park. Plan some of that. So, how does it sort of work? Well, the activator focuses on activating as many parks, new parks, as possible. So every one of those parks, if you haven't activated any, is a new park. It's a target-rich environment for you, right? You can activate a park more than once. That's perfectly fine. You get credit for each activation, but the way they keep score, and it's not a contest, right? It's not a competition. But the way they keep score statistically is how many new parks you've activated. Right? So in my case, I've only activated about 60 new parks, but I have activated a total of about 72 parks. Right? So again, when I compare myself to some of my buddies, it's how many new parks have you activated? They're going to ask you that question. So that's the way they keep score. But they also track if you sold, that you logged. So all of that's available, and you can see how it works. There are awards. We'll talk a little bit about that. There are awards at each level. Once you've done 5 parks, you get an award. Once you've done 10, once you've done 20, 30, 50, right, 100. So there's different levels of achievement, and you'll see some of those awards as we get further into the presentation. The hunter doesn't have nearly that pressure that an activator has. So he didn't have to drive, he didn't have to here. All he has to do is go to his web browser, find POTA.app, find the spots that are out there and available, and tune his radio and listen. It's really what a hunter has to do. But I encourage you, if you've never done this before, start as a hunter. Listen to the cadence. Listen to the exchange going on between the guy in the park and the guy that's calling. You will see the seasoned activators have got an exchange that's about this long. The guys that are new to it will have an exchange about that long. They'll want to rag you a little bit. Not these activators. These activators are not interested in ragging you, but they're interested in getting their 10 contacts and moving on to the next one. Okay? Here's a broader map of the U.S. North American territories, Hawaii, Alaska, and Puerto Rico. And you can see, it's like I said, it's a target-rich environment. You can travel long distances, you can travel relatively short distances. My wife is sick of going on trips because I don't stop at a park long to be an activist. I'm sure I'm not alone. What do you need? Amateur radio license, any radio, any portable antenna, portable power, any logger that will export it to the ADF. POTA doesn't care what the logger is. So anything that works for you that will export that ADF and a desire to have a bunch of fun. A lot of copper antennas, some homebrew wires, so supporting ham sticks are great. Look for coils, alpha antennas, soda big, buddy pole, screwdrivers, many meters. That's all you need. How do you submit a POTA reference? Basically, what they mean by that is how do you submit a log that has your 10 contacts on it for that particular POTA reference. So you're interested in UTC time, right? That's the one thing that is really important here. It's logged there. You got to have call signs. You got to have those kinds of things. You cannot use a terrestrial repeater. So 2 meter and 70 centimeters is fine, right? So is 220. You can find contacts out there, right? But you can't use a repeater. It's got to be simplex. So any simplex channel will work here. But you can do all bands, all modes. Right? So it's pretty wide open. It's a wild, wild west. I don't know that we need to go through a whole bunch of this right here, other than, you want to submit that ADIF file through the POTA app now. It's a It's a relatively new addition to the app. You used to have to email them in and then wait on the regional coordinator to upload them, give you credit. Sometimes that can take 2 or 3 days. But now they added the capability to submit through the app. It's really quick, really easy. The only thing they really require is that you have, they require a file name and something similar to this. I'm not going to say this is absolutely how it has to be, but it's usually year, month, day, underscore, your call sign, and then the part reference right here. All POTA references start with the letter K. Okay? They're all numbered.
In the U.S.
Sorry, you're correct.
K is U.S.
In the U.S. That's right. Thank you for that correction. And so you will see that part. If you go to Canada, you'll have to figure out what they're, and they will show it on a little yellow dot. When you click on that, it'll tell you what the reference of the part is.
Victor Echo.
Victor Echo, that's correct, for Canada. And then you, of course, once you've got that done, your file created, your PDF file renamed, then you just update that to the POTA app. Now, how do you call CPU? Well, bottom line is, and I've got stuff in here that's for the slide things in here that are also for not only voice side, but also for other modes, Morse code, that sort of thing. But generally speaking, there's no exchange. There's no set exchange. That's bottom line. I normally start out with CQ POTA. This is Kilo Delta 5 Bravo Sierra activating part Kilo 7123 CQ POTA. That's it. That's the way I call it. Other people will shorten it. They'll do CQ POTA Kilo Delta 5 Bravo Sierra and K7123. That's it. That's all they'll do. So they get very, very efficient. And they don't have to do a whole lot to it once they've been spotted and once they've started making those 1 or 2 or 3 contacts. Then people will be waiting on an open spot and they can keep that exchange really, really efficient. Okay? There's other ways you can do it through the key, depending on what mode you're using. Here's some examples of paper log, electronic logger. This is a lot of people do it different ways. Some will come home and enter it into an electronic log later. Depends on whatever's working for you. A lot of reasons why you would enjoy portable activation. And I think the big thing, bottom line in all of these things is, for me at least, it keeps your skills pretty sharp. You are used to portable deployments. Some of us have gotten lazy, I'll admit, and created a station in our vehicle where all we have to do is pull it apart, connect our antenna. You know, I raise my antenna basically, and I sit in the back seat and I make calls for 10 or 15, 20 minutes, whatever it takes, and I put that antenna down and I haul it to the next part, right? Some people, you can see some pictures of this, enjoy the park itself for a longer period of time. They'll put up a wire, they'll put up a buddy pole, they'll guide the thing down, they'll do those and nothing wrong with that. I did that the first few activations too, and then I got, there's a better way to do this. I want to do a lot today, so I'm going to be as portable as I can, but I'm not going to put up antennas everywhere. So it depends on you and what you like to do. There's a lot of challenges. The weather is a challenge. One of the beauties of the park is that there's usually a low noise floor in the park. You know, that's not true in German, the Germantown Park. That's not true. That's a noisy park. But it is a POTA reference park. And it's right there in Kimbrough, not Kimbrough, I think it's Kimbrough, and Wolf River. The whole park right here. And it's pretty noisy. But usually when you get out into the park, it's a really quiet, and you can hear well, and people can hear you well. You're not being disruptive to anyone else as well. So, but weather can be a challenge too. Cloudy day, rain, that sort of thing. You gotta love it to be able to go there. You can make friends all over the world, right? But again, I think my primary benefit that I seem to get out of this is making sure my gear works, making sure my gear is ready to go. If I get out and I feel like going to a park and it's close, I'll swing in there and raise my antennas and be done. Ready to go present all the time. And that's part of the skill set that is radios. We need radio enthusiasts. We need this to have. It's accessible. POTA is accessible. There's usually references near any populated area of some kind or the other. There are groups. We talked about putting a group together, but there's some active deployment groups that go out and they'll pick a location, they'll go set up, and I've heard of 4, 5, 6 groups at a time in a general area. Now it's like field day, you got to be careful of frequencies and that kind of problem on the band. But a lot of fun. A lot of people go camping. They'll do POTA camp outs, right, in the park and activate that park over their weekend. So a lot of fun are there. And again, all modes are welcome in POTA. You can literally do anything you can do at home. You can do in a park, and you can get credit for it. So some of the activator awards, they usually send you a PDF file, like these things, and it depends on the contest that POTA has going on at the time. Or this one happens to be an activator award, bronze, which is the first level. So this guy right here got a bronze award for, I think, 5 parks, right? Then it goes bronze, gold, platinum, diamond, yada, 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 until you get on up the food chain. Other activator awards, again, these are sort of special event kind of things. They have all kinds of events around. For hunters, basically, you just got to create an account on parksonair.com. Right? You got to check the POTA app for current spots. Make a QSO, fresh water. What that means is that one of the duties of the hunter is to help the activator. And what that really means is that when you make a contact with an activator, be courteous and re-spot him. So go to the POTA.app application and find him on the spots list, and there's a button on there that says respot. So respot basically means I'm going to give it my call sign and a little bit more information, and I'm basically going to respot. When you hit that enter key, it's going to log him with a timestamp that says he was last seen 3 seconds ago. Right? So it lets you know as a hunter, and other hunters know, that activator is still active in that park. Now, if an activator leaves the park, his sort of obligation is to go QRT. Right? So there's a comment on his spot, a place for a comment on the spot, and I usually say QRT going to another park back in 15 minutes or something like that. My spot stays out there for a period of time, but I am QRT, if you will, off the air until I get in that park. Then I can go back in and re-spot myself. Okay? Become active in the park. But this is really all that a hunter has to do. He doesn't have to do a log submission. We talked about that, right? Check your dashboard and make sure that you're getting credit for those QSOs that you make and keep up with your status. It's pretty simple to do. Okay. You can check the POTA scheduler. We talked about that a little bit, and see who's coming up, what spots are going to be in what parks. You can watch the POTA spotter, which is the list of spots, and and I'll show you those in a minute. Those are the POTA app. Please use phonetics only because we're trying to keep these QSOs as short as possible. Use your DX code of conduct, be courteous during all these follow-ups because sometimes it's a pain to try to remember you're portable as an activator and your ability to hear is not as great as if you were in your shack. So sometimes it takes a little bit to get through these follow-ups, right? Spotter. So spot the activator, it should say, but you want to re-spot him whenever, just to be helpful and courteous. A lot of reasons why you would enjoy it. I won't go through every one of those. If you're helping somebody else reach your goal, it's an easy and short contact, and it really helps young HF operators. When I say young, I mean new HF operators to build their skills and to become more and more comfortable with these kinds of exchanges, right? Okay, here's what the spotter page looks like, right? It's been updated since this particular screenshot was taken. But in essence, it gives you a card. Each one of these are cards, and it tells you the operator, right, and the part that he is in, right, and sort of the name of the part. It tells you the frequency that he is on and the mode that he is on, right? So you can go here, and what I typically do is I sort this list, and it's got a lot of sort capabilities, but I'll weed out those that I've already hunted before, right, that I've been on before. Those that are QRT, I turn them off so I don't have to listen to them or look at them. I can kind of get my list down to something. Then I sort by frequency, and I can start at the bottom of the band, and I can work my way up to the top of that band. Now, I can set band, so in my case, I'm on 20 meters a lot when I'm in the park. So I can set it for 20 meters, turn QRT off, turn hunted off, and I'll sort it by frequency and work 20 meters from the bottom to the top. And I'll turn it all the way back, because inevitably, by the time I've made it to the top of the band, there's other people that have joined. Right? New spots that have come in. So I'll start over again. I'll work that 2 or 3 times until I've had my 10 or, actually in my case, I don't stop till 20. I always feel like I need to have a couple of extra cases, some data interruption. This in general is what you look at as a hunter. You can do this from the beach or your own shack. Hunter awards very similar to activator awards, but they'll say hunter and they'll be colored like bronze, gold, diamond, platinum, whatever. Just the same way, and you get special event awards as well. Right? Top activator challenges, obviously solar. Weather is always an issue. Gear failure, that's why it's important to keep using it over and over and over to make sure that you're aware if you've got a connection that's becoming frail, that you exercise that, you go fix it, you go back out and exercise it. When your batteries, you get new batteries, that kind of thing. So using them makes a big difference. Right? QRM, like that Germantown park I was talking about, I couldn't activate the park for the QRM, really. I'm going to try to skip through some of this because I'm going to take a long time. Safety is really important as an activator. You're in a park, and you have to be careful when you're putting up an antenna. You flag anything that's going to be of a potential nuisance, so that somebody's going to trip over. You just got to be cognizant of the fact that other people use that park as well. Right? Let's see. I keep some documents. I try to print out a map of the locations that I'm going to, keep myself a spreadsheet of where I'm going, grid squares of those places, to It's information that you need to have to save yourself time. Because you get out there, you may not have the internet. And it's pretty important to have information at your fingertips. My equipment in my car, I've got one of those gator cases, those black gator cases, sitting in the back seat passenger side. I've got a 7300 Icon in it. It has a tuner. I've got 2 batteries in my case, a 20 amp hour piano battery, and I've got also a 100 amp hour lead sealed acid battery in there as well. But I don't know that I've ever been through the 20 amp hour in a day. So I don't ever need that battery, but it's there. I have plenty poles. I have telescoping masts. I have mobile mounted trunk lid mount with coils for 80, 40, 20, and 15. I carry hound sticks with me as a backup in case I have quick connects on my mounts, so I can take the Wolf River coil off and put a fixed tube hound stick on there if I need to. I mean, it's pretty easy to drive off with one of those 17-foot antennas up in the air and the tree limb, break it, and now what are you going to do, right? So I carry the hound sticks as a backup for that kind of thing. I also have a small, short, 67-foot infed halfway that I carry with me as well. I carry coax, N3, FJP logging software, and a laptop. Sometimes I'll carry a laptop in a packet. I'll be on the internet on one, and logging software on another, and and be ambidextrous and multitasking. If I'm going out overnight or going to be in one spot all day long, I might take a small generator, extension cords, headphones, chair, both tables, and a canopy. So just a thought. Here's an example that came from one of the other clubs with some photos. This guy is out on the pier on the lake, and he's got his vertical antenna table, and he's sitting out on the dock enjoying the water and the scenery, and radio and electrical. Right? This happens to be in Michigan. Here's one on St. Mark's National Wildlife Refuge in Florida, just south of Tallahassee. I've actually been here, not for POTA, but I've been to this very spot where that lighthouse is. And this guy set up on the beach, and he's not elaborate, right? He's got himself a chair, place to put his radio, and he's having fun. Beautiful spot too. In the mountains, just another example. Here's a guy's camping out. Pretty wide angle lens too. And he should go over the side of the road, pitch his tent. It's like a wildlife management or a national wildlife area of some sort. And he's just having a good time with folks. This guy's just, he's a lot like me. He's just pulled up to his spot. He's in a park, in his car, and he's having fun from his car. This guy has gone crazy. He's camping out, and he's got an antenna phone. Right? He's put up a boatload of antennas across the way, and I suppose some sort of wire dipole that he's using to cover all these things. But he's out there for days. He's not out there for a few minutes. This guy's a first timer and enjoying the activity. Okay? Now, I want to mention again, not all county parks or state or city parks are only because of this. Make sure that the place you're going to make ready for the activation is on the reference list. Now you can hunt from here. You can do this as a hunter in a city park. Doesn't matter. You don't have to be in a POTA reference as a hunter. Right? You can be anywhere. And just other examples that we'll flip through. Here's a guy with vertical, probably his backyard. Wood river coil on a tripod. Okay. Now, a couple of things I want you to pay attention to, if you would, and that is these two websites. So www.parksontheair.com. If you don't have an account, you want to know more about POTA, and you want to read the rules and see what's required. Go first to parksontheair.com. If you want to look at the map, if you want to look at, once you've got your account, go to POTA.app. That's all you have to put in the browser, POTA.app. And it will take you to the actual application where all the reservations or future reservations are out there. All of the current spots are out there. And again, you're probably not going to see much of that tonight on POTA.app because activity in these parks falls off at dark. Right? There are some late shift, what they call late shift operators, that will work out of a more of a camping environment or some park that's a lot safer, that will work later. You'll see them at night sometimes. But for the most part, the volume falls off at dark. And these two URLs are pretty important if you have an interest in joining POTA at all. Now, John would do a control click, control command, or take you to the live POTA.app. Just click on it. It'll work. There you go. Recognize that dude? If you do a control and whatever it takes to reduce the print size, control mouse wheel, control key, the mouse wheel, and down. Yeah, so, I won't do that. You don't think no, it's live. Okay. So this is my profile. Thank you. And you can see this is part of the stats that they keep. Right up here, you'll see the number of activations, and the number of new parks here in that list. You'll see the number of QSOs as an activator. You'll see the number of QSOs as a hunter. So, since I've done both, it will keep both of those available to you. So I'm at 60 parks, new parks activated. I'm at 70 parks activated. I have had 2 parks that I tried to activate that couldn't activate, right? For one reason or the other. And in some cases, those 2 parks came with like my first couple of times, and I screwed up the data, to be honest. So that's my fault, not anybody else. But I have almost 1,000 times active as a hunter, right? And a bunch of them as an activator. And you'll see some of the awards that have been given as a result of that activity. Okay. So here's recent activations. I've been partying and away from it for a little bit. Okay, so this recent activations, and it'll keep track of the band or mode that I'm on. The park reference. And you don't have to do this, but if you click on one of the park references, it's going to show you the QSOs you made in that park. Right? So, again, a pretty elaborate database. Really nice job they've done at keeping up. Scroll on down. Okay, here's recent 100 QSOs. And sometimes you will get if you're entering CQs from home, you won't even know that you've been talking to a park. Unless he tells you. He's not obligated to tell you he's in the park, right? But he's logging that event, and you may get credit for it on here. Okay, so let's go back to the left side of the screen, the little hamburger at the top left. Okay, so down this menu is pretty important here. you've got a whole bunch of stuff. Let's go to this map right here. If you go to maps, here's the, where you are, John? Let's find, okay, here's similar, this area right here, obviously, we all are familiar with it. And in a minute, it populates with the yellow, what is it, sorry, some of the yellow dots that are coming in. Okay? And if you scroll out now to give us a broader view, you will see there's just a boatload of parks all around. Right? So it won't populate everything with one view, but that's good enough. It gives you an idea. Click on one of those yellow dots, anyone, doesn't matter. So I want you to stay on this one too. That's okay. So one of the points I want to make here, and this has been an interesting conversation over the last 6 months. This is Archibald Lake down around Fernando here, and this particular spot right here is right at the the south end of the levee. There's a picnic area, camping area right there. The tendency is to believe that that's the spot where you have to go in order to activate that park. And if you were able to see that by clicking on it, it would say Archibald Lake Recreation. There you go. Archibald Lake Recreational Area right up here. Right? And the number is K7124. And it shows my activity in that park. I've activated it several times. So what I wanted to tell you though is, you can stay right here, spot. There is not one spot in this park that you can go. You've got anywhere in this park. The question is, on the POTA map, it doesn't define what the park is. So in the case of the Archibald Lake, scroll out just a little bit. There you go, good. In the case of this particular park, the recreational area extends all around here. Right? I mean, all the way up here. So you can go across 304 toward Tunica, right up in here, you're in the park. So don't be fooled by those yellow dots. I personally was fooled twice by those yellow dots until it came up in another club meeting and we began this conversation and I had to go check with the ranger. The fact is that you have to find a map of that particular recreational area. And I had to go to Corps of Engineers to get it, right, to find out what that park actually consisted of. Because this is Archibald Point, a big camping facility right on point. You get to it from Hernando's pretty easy. And there's going to be a field day at the end, right here. So the question that started this conversation was, can we do POTA activations on field day from Hernando Point? Well, if you believed it was only that spot right there, you would say no. But the reality is that is part of the recreational area. Right? So, do your research. Find the boundaries of the park. Yes.
How do you prove where you are?
You don't.
That you're in the park.
Honor code.
Okay.
It's honor code.
Got another
question.
Yeah, sorry.
Hey, Bob, K6258, which is the old growth forest or open park.
Yes.
It says on there the actual parking lot is not part of the park to activate. So you have to actually get out of the vehicle and go into it. I sure would actually hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If it says specifically what the boundaries of that park are, as an activator, you must be within the park. Now, I will tell you, and I'm not the only one, that I have been to parks that were closed. Right? If that park is not open, you can't activate it. Right? It has to be open. You have to be able to get inside. Right? So we may have some examples coming up of that a little bit later in the conversation. But anyway, just wanted to show you the map. Go back to the hamburger again, John. And let's go down to the other thing I want to show. Now it's finicky hunt. We saw. Let's go to spots again. Let's just touch on spots because this is the newer spot. You see across the top up here, these guys. This is where you can set the band that you want to work. You can set the mode that you want to work. So if I'm working SSB phone, I don't want to see all those FTAs, right? So I'll pick my mode. I don't know what it says. Phone, SSB. It says SSB. I pick my SSB mode, and it only shows me those that are active. This is real time. So there's only one guy out there that's activating right now. SSB. Right? You can, I don't know much about what programs is, because I don't use that one, but QRTs, I can turn QRTs off. Those are programs that pays for US, right? There's supposed to be some Japan's out there too. And this is, I can show my but the biggest thing I use is the band and mode. And that's what I want you to see. Remember I talked about the respot, this guy right here? This is where you help out the activator. That's what you're hunting, right? And you can respot him, and the time, you see it says last heard right here? That will update that last heard so that his clock starts over at that point when he's got more time, less time on the clock. Otherwise, it'll get straight. If he's not heard for me, I don't know. Y'all know what's the time out? 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Thank you. After 30 minutes, if nobody hears you, it'll drop off the system. Okay, let's go back to the hamburger. Okay, now go down to let's see, go down to top activator. Okay, down here at the bottom, right there. 25. So now we see the activators, and we see the guys that have the most number one folks, and I mean the number one in the world, right, has that many activations, 1,953 activations in 1,200 different parts. He's got a CW, and he's got phone as well, so he's doing two modes, and he look at the QSO, 121,723 QSOs apart from here. Scroll on down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The other two, KG5, YMI. Click on that. This is KG5 YMI Johnny Mac from down in Helena. Johnny Mac has 667 activations and 569 sparks and 14,300 QSOs. Right? He's number 12 in the world. Right? Johnny Mac is with us tonight. So, Johnny Mac, step up here and talk about POTA to these guys.
Hey, Bob, is
Yes.
this just a Windows program, or can you use it on your iPad?
The browser, anything you've got.
Oh, so that will work.
Yep, it's just a browser.
Thank you.
Hey, Johnny Mac. I'll give it then. Go for it.
As Bobby's pointed out, my name is Johnny McKenzie. I've been a ham radio operator since 2018. Parks on the Air program started by ARRL in 2016. There were like about 2,000 parks designated in the entire United States, and it was supposed to be a one-year program. It was a very popular program, and if you notice in some of the sample awards that were up there, Jason Johnson, his name was on it. He went to ARRL along with a few other ham radio operators and said, hey, look, we like this program. Will y'all let us have it? So in 2017, ARRL turned the program over to Jason and a few other gentlemen, and they took it upon themselves to nurture it and grow it. About 3 years ago, they went from, I think there was about 4,000 parks at that time, up to where we are currently now at about 9,700 parks designated in the United States. And as Bobby was pointing out, and you can see with the map around the Memphis area, there's over 100 parks within a 1-hour drive of Memphis. Okay? Some of them are state parks, some of them are federal parks, some of them are federal forest, national forest. Some are battlefield monuments. Some are wildlife management areas. There's one about, I can't remember the designation, it's about 45 minutes from where we are here. That's out in the Delta Park on the Tennessee side, up above Millington. And when you get out there, there's no cell signal. So it's hard for you to spot yourself, okay? And that's where it comes in handy, as Bob was talking about. If you get out there and you let the hunters know that you're going to be activating on a certain day, in a certain park, at a certain time, certain mode, in a certain frequency, say 40 meter or 20 meter or both, they'll look for you. I've been caught in probably a dozen parks in the 569 parks that I've got as unique parks where I've had no cell signal. But it's been like park number 5 of a 10-park day, and people that follow me, because I usually let them know that, hey, look, this is park number 4 of 10 for today. So when I sign off, there's 50 hunters that have over 100 hunts of meat in parks. The hunters usually like to also know what park you're in, because they're checking off and saying, ooh, that's a new park for me. Thanks for getting it today. My pleasure. I enjoy being out here doing it. Talk to you. I'm moving to the next park. Should be there in 30 minutes going QRT. And lo and behold, that next park I went to, I had no cell signal. It was almost 30 minutes to the moment. Got set up, turned my radio on, started calling CQ, and within 2 minutes, Alpha Delta Zero Whiskey November, a gentleman out of southern Missouri, said, Johnny, I got you. I said, oh man, thanks so much. Appreciate you catching me up. Would you spot me, please? He's glad to. So the minute he spotted me, I had 12 more contacts, and I said, thanks guys, I've got my allotment for this park. I've got 6 more to do today. I'm going to go QRT and move to the next one. But just as you can see, I've got 671 attempts. I've got 4 duds. The very first park I did by myself, and the gentleman that got me started in here is a member of y'all's club. Y'all know him as Joe St. Columbia, N5MIG. Okay? He and I got started. He got me hooked into it. And I was traveling from Helena to Hattiesburg, Mississippi to see my dad. And I pulled into Holmes County State Park. It's on I-55, just north of Jackson, north of Canton. It is a designated park. Pulled out, set my tripod out, stuck my ham stick up, ran my coax into my truck, turned my radio on, and I made 9 contacts. And I was working number 10 at 5 minutes to 6 that Friday evening. And a net was starting up by the Coast Guard Reserve out of Long Island, New York, blowing 1,500 watts or more, and nobody could hear me. So I I have, as an activator, it's my obligation, not necessarily by the rules, but yes, by the rules, but by what I believe in doing. I had to turn in my log with 9 contacts because there were 9 hunters that were expecting to get credit for hunting. Okay, they did their part. They hunted me. We had a QSO. We exchanged call signs. We exchanged signal reports. Those signal reports are not necessary for POTA, but everybody likes to know what your signal report is, what their signal report is. So, out of courtesy, most of us POTA activators do that. It's not required for POTA. So my very first solo attempt by myself, I had 9 contacts. Okay. Now I eventually went back and got the park later, but as Bobby pointed out, when Joe and I first got started, I didn't have my general, so I was doing paper logs for him. We hadn't gotten into the laptops, we hadn't got into the software loggers, so I logged them, gave them to him, and he turned them in. And then when I got my general, we started working them together. At first, we'd go in his truck, pull the antenna out, pull the our table out, chairs, battery, radio, sit there and activate. But as time has moved on, we're gotten a little more quicker. We've got everything portable set up in our trucks, and we drive to the parks. We activate. We try to get at least 11, and then move on to the next one. Back in November of last year, we worked 16 parks in one day. So we are dedicated. We like to do it. Although he doesn't have free time as much as I have, so he's a little bit behind in the park count. But
it's not a contest.
That's right. in our club, and we're members of the Helena Radio Club, W5HAR. We have a conversation because there's about 5 of us in the club of about 15 that are POTA activators. We always rag on each other that it's not a contest. And as Bobby's heard me say, when I passed Joe with the 100+ uniques, I said, yeah, it's no longer a contest. Jeff Steele, our treasurer, he always brings it up so we needle each other. But the thing that I really enjoy about it is I like to get out and travel to the different parks. I've been to wildlife management parks, designated parks. I've been to state parks, federal, national parks, national forests, state forests. You do have to pay attention to, like Bobby was saying, not every park is a designated POTA park. Okay? So you need to pay attention. The other thing, as Bobby was alluding to, there are sometimes you have to drive the dot because you don't know, you can't find the boundaries on a map. You drive the dot, you're safe. But don't always go driving the dot because, as Bobby pointed out with Arca Butler, if you're on 304 on the north side, there was a Hurricane Creek. The recreational area extends to the north side of 304, so you can pull off on the shoulder of the road at 304 at Hurricane Creek, and you're in that park. Okay. I did a wildlife management area 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago. It's the Cherokee National Wildlife Area in the state of Arkansas. Okay? The dot for it is over near Fort Smith. But if you look at the map, there are splatters of the designated wildlife management area just west of Jonesboro. And I was working a circuit up in that area, and when I did my research on my trip planning, I said, hey, look, here's the wildlife management area. Also, all I had to do was drive inside of that spot on the boundaries of the map and activated and got credit for the park. And as it was pointed out, to my knowledge, nobody's radio locating us to make sure we're in the park. So it is the honor code on it.
What does it take to, because you said, like you started with 2,000 recognized parks and now there's, what does it take to get one added?
In that team, there are regional ham radio operators that are responsible for investigating potential new parks. Okay?
Everything stopped.
Yes.
Yeah, for U.S., they pretty much stopped. It's like 9,731 parks designated in the United States. And the system is set up for a 4-digit code. So they're trying to hold on to those last few. Because what they've run into, I was in the Land Between the Lakes last year, and the Land Between the Lakes straddles Kentucky and Tennessee. Okay? And the circuit I was working was driving right through the Tennessee side of it. So a couple days before, I notified Tom, N4 MTE out of Murfreesboro is designated to take care of the Tennessee area. And I said, Tom, I emailed him and I said, Tom, I noticed that, the Land Between the Lake, the dot's on the Kentucky side, but it also extends down into Tennessee. And if I'm driving through the Tennessee part of it, can I stop and activate the park? He says, yeah. Well, we don't have it designated. I said, no, you don't. So that park, and if you look at the POTA, when you look at the park list, you'll come across parks that will have U.S./Kentucky +2, or +1, or +8. The Trail of Tears starts in North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. So that same park, I think it's 3792, has Kentucky as the primary list, because that's where it was spotted first. But then it also has 8 more states. So one of the things for activators that they started in the last couple of years is, if you'll notice when Bobby had his, if you don't mind, would you scroll up for a second? And go a little bit, keep on, just a little more. Hold right there for a second. Yeah, okay. Activated all U.S., Mississippi. That means I've gone to every park that's designated, which is 130 parks in the state of Mississippi. So I've gone and activated them at least one time. Okay? They have it for all 50 states. They have it for all of them. The countries as well as the states and provinces in Canada. So if you activate, and each state doesn't have the same amount. Missouri has 330. Tennessee, I think, is 282. Oklahoma has 160. Alabama has 97. Okay, but as an activator, when you go back to the same park again and again and again, you get what they call the repeat offender award. If you've gone to the same park 20 times, and you've had at least 10 contacts in each time that you've gone, then you get an award for repeat offender. If you've gone to the same park and you've gotten 1,000 QSOs in that park, you get a kilo award. Okay. So there's different things, because, and this is the problem I have. I like to chase unique parks. I'm not for going to the same park over and over again. Although in the Helena area, we've got 10 parks within 45 minutes of my home. So Joe and I have started going back to some of the parks to get their repeat offender award, as well as the Kilo award, getting 1,000 contacts. But that's primarily because all my activations have been basically as a one-day trip. My wife has threatened divorce because I leave at 3 o'clock in the morning and come home about 10 o'clock at night, and I've driven 5 hours in one direction in the state of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. I've touched Florida, Missouri, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, and to get my 569 unique parks. But I've run out of the parks that I can do that in a 10-hour drive. So now I'm in the mode of, okay, I'm going to have to start picking my spots, grab a hotel room, and try to get some more. Because there's 2 groups in the state of Arkansas that I'm trying to get, so I'll have all of Arkansas. But the thing I like about it is I make good contacts. I've got to talk to both ladies and gentlemen that know me through the radio. They look for me. I recognize their call signs. I talk to them. They talk to me. And go off there.
Good. Can we go back? Can we go back, John, to the slides? Good. Okay. I wanted to reiterate one more time let's go. I want you to note again, if you're interested in this activity, these 2 sites are the place to go. So John has a copy of the presentation if anybody wants to see it. Again, it came from POTA, an organization and promoter clubs that contributed a lot to this. So we're very thankful to them. But in the case of Johnny Mack, and I appreciate him driving from Helena up here tonight. Can you guys imagine how much wear and tear on a vehicle, how many gallons of gas that it has taken? He's invested in POTA.
So I'm on my second vehicle.
Yeah. Thank you for being willing to. Any questions? I guess that's the next slide we need to get. Any questions? Yes?
Do you have any responsibility to check for the ranger or anything?
Actually, good question. In some of these parks, you will find unfriendly rangers, right? Not all do, not most, but occasionally you have no obligations to check in. But if you see them there, it's always a good idea to pull over and just tell them what you're doing, where you're going to be, and you're not going to light any fires or do you have any obligations to it?
Some parks you actually have to pay admission.
Well, that's true. Georgia, in particular, has a
Florida's
daily use
the same
fee.
way.
Yeah, daily use fee.
Not if you're a veteran.
True.
That's right. That is true. That's right. So there are some obligations that you have to have. Checking in with a ranger, it's a good habit, but not necessary. Any other questions? Yes.
It's actually kind of rhetorical. I know the answer, but other people might. You don't actually need to be a hunter or an activator to spot someone, right? If you're sitting at home, you can just help them out.
Any friend that can get to it. I mean, your wife could do it if she's not an amateur radio operator. Just go to the site and find it. Yes.
I read somewhere that you can now spot us through Winland. You can send a Winland message to POTA, WC, and Outlook.
That's a big question.
And you can, I read it all.
I have read something similar to that too. There's also a way to spot through beacons, and I'm not sure what that is.
CW doesn't reverse you.
Yeah. So I'm not up on any of that, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's possible. Spotting it's just such a huge deal. I mean, it makes things so much easier.
If you don't spot, I've spent an hour and a half in a park trying to get 10.
questions anywhere? Thank y'all very much.
All right, well, thank you again. It's really cool that we've got Johnny Mack. He said the 12th, the one with the 12 most contacts in the world was for POTA. So thank you for taking the time to come tonight, and we certainly appreciate that. I know I'm looking forward to trying to get out there and dive into this a little bit. So appreciate both of you guys talking about it.
If anyone needs help getting started, we can help.
Will do. Does anybody else have anything before we go? All right. So in that case, again, don't forget if you haven't already signed in, fill your name and call sign in on the ticket, and then please push your chair in and kind of pick up your area if you don't mind. That'll really help us with the cleanup. Thank you guys so much, and have a good night.